All right, folks, it is 6:30, so I will call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Furtado.
Here.
Greer.
Here.
Hanauer Friedman. Locke.
Here.
Lokshin.
Here.
Michaels. Owen. Pugh.
Here.
Rodriguez. Rogers.
Present.
Sexton. Smith.
Present.
Storr.
Present.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Here.
Thorsland.
Here.
Finish Thiernot.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Cowart. Esri.
Here.
Farty.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
We have a quorum. All right, tonight's prayer. Through life, I yearn for the harmony that transcends discord. May I embrace differences as a symphony of perspectives, each note contributing to the richness of the whole. Let understanding be the guide of my interactions, guiding me to recognize views different than my own. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on April 18th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. in the Shields Carter Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Go ahead, Aaron, Ed. All right, yes, go ahead, JJ.
I'd like to amend the agenda to move other business A1, 2, and 3, the ARPA items. I'd like to move it to after areas of responsibility. So it'd be right before new business. So right after the clock tower resolution.
Okay, is there a second to that? All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, all in favor of the amended agenda motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We have an agenda. All right. The next regularly scheduled meetings are listed on the agenda. We'll now move to public participation. First person up, Mr. Steve Beckett.
Could that be moved to item number 12A so that we could hear hear that at 12A, please?
Well, we've already established the agenda.
Oh, no.
What's the will of the board? Do you want to try and simply move this? This is going to be pursuant to the bell tower. I'm seeing nodding
clock
heads.
tower.
If I don't see anybody saying no, then okay, we will go ahead and adjust that and do it at that time then. Is that all right, Steve? That's fine. All right, thank you. All right. Second person, Mary King.
Hey, everybody. It's been a shocking month for Champaign County, but I would like to remind this board of what not to lose sight of moving forward. It's been shocking to learn the county auditor, while on county time and serving in his official capacities, decided to download inappropriate images to his county computer. It's shocking that the auditor, a position that makes a $96,000 a year salary, has only accessed the program his office uses for work for a total of only 20 dates over the past 2 years. It's shocking that the county auditor has decided to try and use a personal lawyer to threaten this board and ostensibly the public at large into not making any statements about his ongoing behavior. The Supreme Court, ruling in the 1964 case of New York Times versus Sullivan, stated that for a public figure to recover damages in a defamation case, he must prove not only that the statement was defamatory, but also that it was made with actual malice. The court reasoned that this heightened burden of proof was required by the First Amendment in order to ensure uninhibited debate on public issues, even when such debate includes vehement, caustic, unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. Still, what's especially shocking is that the county auditor has mismanaged members of his staff so badly that they felt their last and only recourse was to make formal complaints to the county. Month after month during my 2 years on this board, we were reminded of the long list of unfilled positions, that our pay was low in comparison with other local employers, and it was becoming difficult for even longtime county employees to pay their rent and still afford groceries. It is one of my major sadnesses that there wasn't much I could do as a member of this board to make the county a better work environment for our essential professionals. But this board can. It needs to stand up for our county employees. It's a sad fact that whistleblowers are usually treated as less than heroes and more as troublemakers, even when their actions bring to light major problems. With that in mind, I'm asking this board to put their focus where it belongs, on our county employees, and do everything they can to publicly censure the actions of an elected official acting for his own personal gain by desperately trying to find the limits of what the democratic process and governmental structure are actually capable of doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak at public participation? Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay, all right. Accordingly, I will close public participation. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve consent? Okay, we have Jen Locke and Jen Straub. Motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Furtado.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. Smith.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Finish Thiernot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Farney.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Passes. Thank you very much. Communications. Do any members of the board have communications to share? Jamala.
Thank you, County Executive. Excuse me. First, I would like to remind everyone that this weekend, or is it this weekend? Yes, April 20th from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. Saturday, the Urbana Park District is having a health and wellness center open house and floor signing. The address is 2002 East Washington Street, and parking is available in the lots east and west of the center. And the second communication I have is we have one more from the week of April 15th of 2024 to April 26th of 2024. The Champaign County Circuit Clerk's Office is hosting their Amnesty Week. During that time, anyone who has a balance due to a criminal, traffic, DUI, ordinance violation, or conservation violation will be able to apply their total dues minus any late fees and collection fees which have been accumulated. This does not apply to any fines and costs which have already been paid or any tax refunds which have been applied against what is due and owing. Individuals who wish to participate in this program may ask for a quote in their case or cases by sending an email to the circuit clerk at ccritclerk@co.champaign.il.us. The email needs to include the individual's name with their middle initial, their address, their phone number and email address, and their case number or numbers. The case number lookup can be found at the circuit clerk's website, which is www.champaigncircuitclerk.org. And you can go to the tab called View Court Case Information and filling in their name in the box called Search by Participant.
Thank you. Dr. Storr.
Thank you. I just want to call to your attention that Saturday from 9 to 11 is Shred Day at the State Farm Center. The Earth Day is April 22nd, and I encourage us all to renew our own personal commitment to reduce, reuse, and refuse. Refuse plastic bags, bring your own, refuse straws. They don't degrade. And the Urbana Park District is holding their Earth Day celebration at Crystal Lake Park from 1 to 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one small bit of information. If Black Dog is still doing it, they are offering paper straws, if I remember correctly. So some businesses are aware of that and making some changes, but point well taken, Chris.
You're right. And please let them know that you appreciate their efforts in doing that, especially if they don't offer you, if they don't put a straw automatically in your drink. Thank you.
Ms. Carter, were you next? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jenny.
I just have a quick one. Remind you that next weekend, April 25th through 27th, is Illinois Marathon Weekend. This is the first year since 2019 that they'll be running the full marathon route again. I think if you're on the route, you should have received a letter from the marathon, like I did, that says that they'll be running by and apologizing for any inconvenience. But it wouldn't hurt to go to IllinoisMarathon.com and check the routes just to be sure. I'm excited to be able to cheer from my front yard this year, so anybody wants to come over, come to but yes, Friday the 25th through Sunday the 27th will be race weekend. Sorry, that's Thursday through the Saturday.
Thank you. Samantha?
Thank you, Executive. So I got clarity on my position and duties of the chair, which I discovered that the rules and procedures of Champaign County Board hasn't been revised since October 24th, 2019. There is some new legislative statutes that are that will override what the county board rules are. There are some gray areas, as you will see, that there are some mentions of county board duties under the county board rules and procedures that are not mentioned on the statute. So I think this would, of course, apply to both chairs. So I will be sending this information. I didn't know how we would go about incorporating the new legislation, but I think after 5 years, we need some updates to the county board rules and procedures. So I will be sending this to the full board. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, two things real quick. Tomorrow, Friday, from 10 to 2 p.m. on 1207 South Oak, which is the Disability Resource and Education Services. It's across the street from my lab that I work in. It's their 75th anniversary. They'll have demonstrations and things. If anyone follows, this is where the wheelchair basketball comes from. We have some very famous people who do the wheelchair marathons who've trained there. Being across the street from them for 30 years, I've seen all kinds of really cool stuff in the morning when they all head out. Those folks do a marathon like every day. It's crazy. So that's very cool. And go with Earth Day and Doctor Store. Yes, of course, you should always bring your bag to the supermarket. California. This is from an industry blog called Electric. In February and March, for 30 of the 38 days in California, wind, solar, and hydro exceeded the 100% demand during the daytime in California, which is the 8th largest economy in the world, not just in the country, in the world. And something they've brought online in January to take care of when the sun's not shining, they've started to do massive amounts of battery storage. I bring that up for two reasons. We're working on the battery storage ordinance, and we're still not compliant with the solar and wind ordinance of the state. So,
Okay, Stephanie.
Two announcements. This, on Sunday, April 28th, so a week from this Sunday, it is Workers' Memorial Day. It's a day when communities pause to take time to remember workers who died on the job here in Champaign County. If you've never seen it, we do have a county worker memorial site where names are inscribed from workers who died on the jobs. At 2 p.m., they will be laying a wreath. Different elected officials and folks will be there. It's a really moving ceremony, and that will be at Dodds Park at 1501 North Mattis Avenue in Champaign, Illinois. Just look for the bunch of cars when you get into the park. And again, that's at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Is that the same day as the marathon someday? It's marathon Saturday, right? When it's on the same day as the marathon, that can get real tricky. That's happened a few times. I also wanted to remind the public and all of the board meeting members that we are having a special finance meeting this month in order to talk about the possibility of placing a public safety sales tax on the ballot in November. That's at 6 o'clock in this room on Tuesday. I strongly encourage both the board members and members of the public to come. And I wanted to give everybody on the board a heads up of how we're anticipating this running. What I'm thinking is we will start with Mr. Wilson and collect questions from everybody on the board all at once. If you have any outstanding questions about the PSST, and then give admin and finance a chance to try and answer those questions. If you have questions and would like to submit them ahead of time, I am sure that admin would appreciate those, and you can email those over to Megan, and she'll collect those. But we want to collect everybody's questions, and then the plan is to start with Lorraine and go the opposite direction, and everybody will have an opportunity to say where they are on placing the tax on the ballot, because we need to give admin a sense of where we are with this, because, as I've said many times, we're at a fork in the road, and how we prepare our budget will in some way, shape, and form be informed by that decision that we make. So that's the plan, and it seemed like the fairest plan for me that I could think of. And so that is the plan. And of course, we'd love to hear from the public, and we'd love the public to come and listen in both either on YouTube or in person to this important discussion that we're having.
Brett, go ahead.
Thank you. And if I may too, for Stephanie, the best way to come to the Workers' Memorial is through the east exit for Parkland, because we know Parkland is huge and you'll get lost in there. Second thing is Saturday is Boneyard Cleanup Day. So if you can, if you don't live by the Boneyard, they'll be happy to take you. They should provide pizza or something like that afterwards, and you get a nice bright orange t-shirt. Last thing, I think Jen Locke can help me with this. Monday, they're doing the African American Heritage Trail at the university at 4:30 to 5:30. I cannot remember where it starts, but hopefully you can help me out.
I have been put on the spot. I'll look it up right now. Brett, can you do a dance while I look?
I do apologize. It's somewhere on First Street. I can't remember the time because they used the name of the old building. Is it the Cattle Bank? No, it's actually further south. Okay. It's down towards where like the fraternities are and where the intramural places are. Or is it the cemetery?
All right, I'll just read the press release. Sharing new and invite to celebrate the installation of 7 Champaign County African American trail signs on campus. You're invited Chancellor Jones, ECU Foundation Chair Lynn Barnes, and some other people, Monday, April 22nd at 4:30 p.m. Yeah, First Street across from Grange Grove. Brief remarks there, followed by a quick walk to Tanner Brown Busfield sign at First and Peabody. So at either place, there's no remarks at the second place.
Thank you. I just forgot where it was. From my understanding, they're going to hit a few different places too.
Thank you, Brett. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Just two things. One thing first, what date was this talking about our questions on the tax? What day was that?
The special meeting is on Tuesday, and it's at 6.
This coming Tuesday?
This coming Tuesday.
Okay.
And it's, just remember, everybody, it's at 6, not 6:30. The special meetings are the study sessions. I don't know why I'm calling it a special meeting. Study sessions are always
Study
at 6.
session.
Yes.
Okay. That means we just have to be at Bunny's by noon to make it here by 6, I think, right? Okay, so hey, I had the really good privilege on Tuesday to go and visit the Emergency Management Agency and MetCAD Center, because I had asked some questions about emergency plans, and I really wanted to see the emergency plans because they're really not public. And so I had a great opportunity to be there, and John Dwyer, who's the coordinator, you probably all know him. I'm new on the board, so I don't know him. But anyway, you know what? He's very knowledgeable and really an expert in emergency management. And then also had a tour of the MetCAD, which I had no clue what MetCAD means. So anybody know what MetCAD means? No, I didn't either think so either. All right, say it.
Metropolitan Computer Aided Dispatch.
Exactly, Metropolitan Computer Aid Dispatch. Anyway, fantastic facility. It brought me back to the time when I was working for Exelon Nuclear Corporation and being in the corporate emergency response organization and my role there, where they had the emergency response for all the nuclear power plants in this state. But and then I got to read the plans and the emergency plans and look through the emergency plans. So I'm glad that our state and our county is on top of what needs to happen, should it happen. Hopefully it never does happen. And I didn't know that that building was built in 1966, and it was basically a Cold War bomb shelter, so to speak, right? An emergency location, and just in case you need to go somewhere right underneath your desk in your classroom. I don't know if you remember those trainings where we would go. Well, that's probably before you, but back in the day, we used to have the drill where you'd crawl underneath the desk in your school, and apparently you would be safe. But anyway, yeah, duck and cover. But anyway, really thankful that the county and also for John Dwyer that we have such an organization that's on top of things that need to be on top of.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This past week, I've just been contacted by a fair number of constituents with questions about what's been going on. And I just wanted to publicly clear up like a misapprehension that has been circulating for months now, actually. From my understanding is the auditor is always on the committee of the whole agenda. He does not need our permission to be on that agenda. He's on that agenda. He can present on that agenda. He was asked not to earlier this year because we already had a heavy agenda that night. So this is not anything that has been like, I'm going to make you not talk. So I just wanted to clear that up for the public who don't know how the agenda work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, if you'd be willing to indulge me, I had meant to put this out at your desks. I believe I've talked with JG about it. I'm not sure if I talked with Leah. Currently, our assessor's office has to post a list of all property assessments in the newspaper within our county. That is a state law. It is also rather expensive, and technology-wise, probably not as effective a way of sharing that information, although we do share the information electronically. there is a bill in the legislature that would amend the law to allow county governments to meet their property assessment publication mandate by either publishing the information on a county website or in a newspaper. And I just wanted to put that out there for members of the board to think about and consider. If you would, please get back to administration and let me know what your thoughts are. Another county has put forward a resolution in favor of this piece that's in the legislature. So please keep that in mind and let me know what your thoughts are. Again, it is extraordinarily expensive. I like the media a lot, but it's a drain on our assessor's office to go ahead and publish. Anyway, thank you very much for indulging me. I appreciate the time. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of March 21st regular meeting? All right, Jenny and Jen. Any discussion at all? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, standing committees, summary of action taken April 2nd, 2024, meetings received and placed on file. Highway and Transportation Committees, summary of action taken April 5th, 2024, is received and placed on file. For areas of responsibility, the summary of action for the April 9th Committee of the Whole meeting is received and placed on file. Moving on to policy, personnel, and appointments under areas of responsibility, would the policy chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item 1? Dr. Storr.
Thank you. I'd like to move adoption of resolution number 2024-99 honoring Bruce Hannon, naming the Bruce Hannon Memorial Courthouse clock. The drafter of the resolution is present. Mr. Steve Beckett, would you care to read the resolution and the proposed citation?
Just so we can make this official, I second your motion.
Thank you, JJ. Mr. Beckett.
Thank you. Of course, I was able to make extended remarks at the Committee of the Whole, and I appreciated the reception. And I bring greetings from Laura Madden, who is Bruce's daughter, and Brian Hannon, who is Bruce's son. Brian's traveling, could not be here, and Laura lives in Bloomington, was also not able to, but they very much appreciate it. I'll simply say that in reflecting after the presentation and seeing the publicity in the Gazette today, I reflect on an event and a movement, I guess, that I felt brought consensus to the county, and I think at times we need that. Our county needs that, and I truly appreciate the board's consideration of this resolution. Whereas Bruce Hannon, a lifelong Champaign County resident, was well known for his workmanship and skill in renovating and repairing clocks of all nature and for many, many people. And whereas Bruce Hannon used his skill to restore the historic Champaign County Courthouse clock in 1976 and return it to working order. And whereas the courthouse clock again fell into disrepair and was non-functional at the time of the construction of the new courthouse addition in 2000. And whereas Bruce Hannon was instrumental in forming the Citizens Committee to restore the clock and bell tower at the Champaign County Courthouse in 2001 and became chair of said committee. Whereas under his leadership, the Clock and Bell Tower Committee raised $1.15 million of non-public funds by private donations to underwrite the reconstruction of the historic tower at the Champaign County Courthouse and to restore the clock therein, now known as the Richmond Tower. And whereas Bruce Hannon's leadership created the position of Keeper of the Clock under the auspices of the Director of Facilities for Champaign County. And whereas by private donation there exists endowed funds in the Elva Greason Bell Tower Fund with the Community Foundation of East Central Illinois that serve for the benefit of the clock and bell tower. And whereas the Champaign County Board deems it proper to honor the work and legacy of Bruce Hannon and his contributions to the good of the citizens of Champaign County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Champaign County Board that the clock at the Champaign County Courthouse in Urbana, Illinois, shall be designated as a Bruce Hannon Memorial Clock, and that an appropriate plaque shall be created and placed at a proper location to be determined by the Director of Facilities, keeper of the clock, with an appropriate dedication ceremony on a future date to be determined by the Champaign County Executive. Presented, adopted, and approved and recorded this 18th day of April, AD 2024. The plaque, as I indicated at the last meeting, would say, Bruce Hannon, eternal keeper of the clock. And I appreciate the opportunity that you've provided me to come up here before you to present this resolution.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any discussion from the board on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have amended the agenda so that we will now be moving the other business, ARPA discussion, items 1, 2, and 3 to this next portion. So Kathy Larson coming forward. Thank you. What news do you have to share, Kathy?
Good evening, and thank you for moving this up in the agenda. So we've included the normal update in the packets as far as the project status and the financials, and we're currently working on compiling and gathering the data for the quarterly report that's due to the Department of Treasury by the end of this month. We also continue to work with, of course, all the agencies and departments on their payments and their status and their timelines. We plan to meet internally next week to discuss project status and see where everyone's at and what changes may possibly need to be made. And I did want to mention that in the financial projections and the project list, a few projects that we recently requested the final payments that won't show up yet. We wait to report these items in these pages until they clear the financial statements. But we did just request the final payment for the Village of St. Joe for their water project for the current existing contract. We also requested the final payment for Justine Peterson for the loan program. And we also requested the final payment for Vision to Succeed for community violence intervention. So just so that you know that those are in process of completing their agreements as they currently stand. And I'd be happy to try to answer specifics.
Questions from the board? Go ahead. Jeff.
Or Mike, it doesn't matter. Okay. Thanks for being here. I had a question maybe two questions. So the first question is on the quarterly report, how is that distributed, or is that published on our website? I seem to have forgot about that. Where does the quarterly report get published?
We currently file that in the Department of Treasury's online portal, and then we have it available if someone would like a copy as well.
Okay, would it be maybe prudent to at least have the summary statement of the quarterly report and publish that in our ARPA webpage?
And we can discuss that internally. The quarterly report, as it comes out of the Department of Treasury's website, makes no sense. It's not formatted in any way that makes sense to anyone, really. And so that's why we put the information in these monthly reports. But we can always share copies of the quarterly, and you can take a look for sure. They're usually about 88 pages now, so it's just a lot of data about contractors and things. Yeah.
And the second question is on the accruing interest. How is that allocated, and what are the guidelines for that allocation?
The accrued interest is not subject to the ARPA regulations. At the same time, if there are projects that, the county wants to discuss using the interest for, it would be available, but it's not subject to ARPA reporting.
So then one more follow-up question. Then does that accrued interest just get swept into the general fund, or where does it land?
It's currently listed with our ARPA funds. It's specifically separated out currently, yes.
As I think we discussed, it's got to be 2 months ago, that one of the decision points for the board will be what we're going to do with that interest during the budget cycle this time. Kathy, can I ask you, I wasn't actually recognized.
You are recognized.
Sorry. Kathy, can I ask you, is the timeline for ARPA still the same, or has there been any indication that that might be expanded?
It's still the same, and I
Okay.
have another webinar I'm going to attend to,
Okay.
but still has to be obligated by the end of this
Okay.
year. We can pay afterwards, those two.
Because I've heard some conversation that it might be expanded, that there's some indication that the feds are thinking of that, but it's not anything official yet, right?
So far, what I've attended as far as meetings regarding that, our stipulations would still be the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Samantha.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for all the hard work that you do. Just a quick question. As far as percentage-wise, without calling out any names or anything, are we on track with the spending schedule, like the money that's been allocated, or would you say that a certain percentage you would think maybe would be returning back some of those funds? Can you kind of give us an update on that?
Yeah, I would
Thank you.
say a majority currently is still on schedule or in the plans to still spend the funds according to the ARPA reporting guidelines. So yeah, currently a majority are still submitting the request for payments and the information that we need to fulfill their contracts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Kathy, I was wondering, there's a line item on there for the County Board of Health Senior Study. It's on page 77 of the packet, your page 2, I guess, of the spreadsheet. That 30,000, does that encompass stuff like for Advocates for Aging Care and the study they want to do?
So there's two separate aspects to that. It does coincide with that topic, but also I believe the department or the Public Health Department is also pursuing data as well, and that's what the 30,000 would cover from our end. But the aging group is also involved in a separate piece to that study.
Yes, ma'am, and I guess the awareness I want to raise is there's been 20,000 offered to have the study done. They're still short 15,000 to even get the study started, market study they want to do from the Greystone Consultants. Are you aware of that, or have they talked to you?
I believe in the regular budget, there's another set that's allocated, and Michelle may have more on that.
So the 30,000 from the county board through the ARPA funds is for the needs assessment by the Advocates for Aging. And then there's a separate $20,000 from the County Board of Health that is being paid for the market study. And now the Advocates of Aging are asking for an additional 15,000 to finish the market study. So at this point, all of the work they've done has been funded by the county levy in some format or another.
Then because I talked to Ann Sussman, she's not aware of that 15,000 being approved by the county?
It's on the agenda for later today to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this was one of the first things we started on, and it seems to me that it's pretty far behind, and this is the rural broadband project. We've got a lot of big numbers projected and not very big numbers spent down yet. I know that this is a really complicated process, and there's a lot of work going on with state and federal funds as well. Is there sort of the 1-minute tour of where we're at with broadband?
I know that both providers had applied to the state for funding and were in discussions and an application process. So, yeah.
Okay, we're still progressing though, so thank you.
If you'll bear with me, I did get a letter from Bailey earlier this week with Farm Bureau, and she wanted to, wanted to give us a heads up on a few things that they've been working on with the Farm Bureau. First of all, Champaign County Farm Bureau was selected to present a lightning round presentation at the Illinois Broadband Summit on May 9th and 10th. The topic of that discussion is how to get early buy-in from the rural community and farmers on potential broadband projects. Her assistant, Lucas Stark, will be making the presentation and repping that meeting in Chicago. And Bailey will be in D.C. during those days because she received an invitation from the Benton Institute to attend a closed-door broadband permitting summit. So our partners with Farm Bureau are working to try and make sure that they're getting their foot in the door in terms of meeting with folks that are going to be impacted in terms of actually laying the fiber. And the money's not been spent. We're still waiting on hearing back from both of our vendors in this case, but what we've heard so far is promising in terms of grant funding being approved. So we are not spending a lot of money right now, but we are making progress, I believe. Go ahead, anybody? Oh, Stephanie.
So on that, Tim, who is our representative from the group that we have contracted with to oversee the project, whose name I'm forgetting right now, the company, Finley, thank you. He has been sending in weekly updates to finance about the status, because I do have a lot of concern about the timeline. I've just done a lot of easement projects, and we don't have Mr. Goss, Mr. Easement here to tell us. He would every month tell us about the horrors of easement projects. And so I do share your concerns about this. I think at this point, we're sort of waiting for the state, but we've been waiting for the state for months now. I don't really understand why it's taking so long, especially the VOLO. My understanding is they're approved. The dollar amount, we don't know. They're just waiting on like the final. Yeah, so we're just waiting on that. The other two things I wanted to mention is in May, at this meeting, we will be hearing from First Followers, who are bringing some of their partner groups in to talk about the project of their project. And then in June, at the COW, I think, in June, although I could be wrong, we are hearing from the Farm Bureau, who is going to talk about their cover crop project. And that, as of right now, is everything that we have online in terms of updates. But if there's a project you would like to hear an update about, please let myself or Kathy know, and we will coordinate those. Those were two. First Followers reached out to us and asked us to give an update. And many of you wanted to hear about the cover crop, so we reached out to Bailey. So, but if there's other projects on here you'd like to hear more about, all you got to do is ask, and we'll get those folks in, and we'll do an update with them too. We don't want to do more than one a month because these meetings are long enough, but we want the board to hear from the folks that are getting the funding.
Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. Under a small business assistance, the low hurdle grant program, haven't seen any expenditure. I know that they're kind of, for a long time, waiting looking at what state grants were, but soon?
Yeah, so I had asked Carly a couple times this past month, and she was going to work with the Small Business Development Center to come up with a proposal, and so we're waiting to hear back on that. And then, of course, this next week when we talk about project status, we can talk about next steps for that or what to do on that. Yeah.
Jenny, go ahead.
One I'd like to hear more on, if not now, but next month or whenever you have a chance, is the Central Illinois Land Bank Authority. I happened to just see a news story on that recently where they were doing some work in Decatur, and I know they were one that was slow to get started with us, but I'm curious to hear where they are with work in Champaign County now.
And we have sent funds to assist, 5 to 7 houses so far, so, yeah.
We're continuing to have bid openings for some of these projects. We are looking at trying to close that out by the end of this summer. And I'm continuing to work with folks with the Land Bank to kind of expedite that. Samantha.
I just wanted to assure the board that when we do get an update, I have asked for both vendors to please do it in person. So Steve was also copied on that email. So we will get an in-person update with the broadband task force. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Kathy. Next up, we got a presentation with regard to the St. Joe Water Project, and Village Manager Joe Hackney and Mayor Tammy Freeling-Boges are both here. Greetings.
County Executive, members of the County Board, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Joe Hackney. If I haven't met you, nice to meet you. If I have, nice to see you again. Tammy Freeling-Boges, our mayor, is here also in the audience, and we appreciate you giving us a chance to make a presentation and then also hear our request. Want to give you an overview. I'll keep it under an hour for you. All right. 55 minutes. Okay. Well, I'll squeeze it in. Of what we've got going on, how your money helped us, and where we're going. In 2019, the village really took an aggressive approach to improving their infrastructure on numerous levels. We currently have a $16 million wastewater treatment plant upgrade and expansion. We're hopeful that, and if you drive by, it looks like a bomb went off. It's a lot of construction going on. It's really exciting, and we're hopeful that it puts us in compliance with the IEPA for decades to come. In addition to that, with that new plant, it also expands our capacity, and with that expanded capacity, we expect to be able to take on 1,000 new homes or some mixed use of commercial and residential. But with that extra capacity, we have to have the ability to get the waste to the sewer plant. And so we are needing to do a sewer trunk line. We have that, an approved IEPA low interest loan for that project. And that trunk line will go from the sewer plant, which is in the southwest part of town, all the way to the St. Joseph Ogden High School north of Highway 150. And along the way, we'll be redoing Elm Street, which if you drive on Elm Street, it's kind of an inside joke in St. Joe that it's got built-in speed bumps. Because you feel it when you're driving, but the road will be redone and we'll have a new sewer interceptor installed as well. In addition to that, and the reason why we're here today, is we have combined in projects that will address long-term flooding issues in the community. If you're familiar with St. Joe, St. Joe's got a reputation for having really severe flooding issues. And a lot of those occur in the old part of town, which hasn't had a lot of investment historically, and we're making those investments. In your packet, you have kind of an outline of the different phases. When we came to you in 2022 and asked for assistance when you put out the request for rural communities to come in and request a share of your ARPA money, we started off with 2 phases for a south suburban sub-basin, that would address stormwater issues from the eastern part of our community out to the Salt Fork River. As we've went through the design process, that's been broken up into 4 phases because everything's more expensive than what you expect whenever you get into it. And so we have an outline of the 4 phases. From phases 1 through 4, the goal is to have a large storm tile that connects the eastern part of the community, which is farm ground currently, but it's annexed in. And that would assist if the village ever grows in the future of reducing the stormwater issues and the infrastructure required to address those issues. But then phases 1 through 3, which is what we're immediately addressing and we're chipping away at currently, will take us from the point where it connects into the Salt Fork, and we'll go to DD6, Drainage District 6, which, if you're familiar with Drainage District 6, carries a lot of the stormwater from the northeast part of St. Joseph down to the southwest part of St. Joseph. And the goal with this storm tile connecting into there is that it will redirect the water coming from the northeast part of the community and divert it out to the Salt Fork directly, so that from that connection point to the southwest, that water is not going there, so all the area south of that is able to drain quicker. So as you see our phases, we have put out to bid and have open bids for phase 1 currently. It came in over $1 million, as everything does, it seems like. And we are intending to use the grant dollars that we have been approved for and given to us over the last few years to address this first phase. With all of the grant dollars, including our ARPA money that was allocated to the village directly, and some DCEO money that was allocated to the village, we have roughly $480,000 remaining. And any assistance, if you have any additional ARPA money available, we are shovel ready. The construction's going to start in the summer, and we will get the money spent on time very, very quickly. So there's a couple points I just want to highlight on this. One, and I kind of referred to it earlier, this project is addressing infrastructure issues in a portion of our community that historically hasn't had a lot of investment. So that's a big deal for St. Joe. And we're really excited about that. And it's addressing flooding issues and drainage issues that have caused lots of property damage over the years. And we're being as proactive on that as we possibly can. And then the other point, we know that the ARPA deadline's coming. We have our ARPA money to spend, and we're going to get the money out. We're ready to go. We have a contractor selected, and we're going to be spending the money this summer. So any consideration that you could offer us or any help you could offer us, we would really appreciate it. But if, I know I still have quite a few minutes left here, but I can think of something else. But I'm open to questions. If you don't have any questions tonight, feel free to reach out to me. You can find my contact information on the website, or I can go out to my car and get you a business card. But I'm an open book, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
We know how to get in touch with you. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Stephanie, sorry.
So I have a few questions. One, I just want to make sure I understand the map correctly. Is the water draining into the wetland? Is that the,
Yes.
or away? Okay, into the wetland. I just have two things that I would like to maybe think about long-term with wetland and water projects. I've actually worked on a lot of water projects in my life, and there's a lot of funding specifically for wetland, like through DNR and like fen wetland restoration. There's a lot of grant money out there for that. And long-term, I think it would maybe be something that would be beneficial for the county to, you can build out water infrastructure projects that are also wetland restoration projects, and they're in different pots of money than one would think about. And I think for our grant person directing this at admin, that might be something for us to look at long-term. And maybe, you know, one of the things that Eric and I talked a lot about when I was over at ELUC is like, well, what do we do like once all the ARPA money's out? I think we need to continue to be in the water management business as a county and working with some of these smaller rural areas that the only way for them to do these projects is to incur massive debt or just to wait until it's a crisis, right? Because there just isn't pots of money lying around for this, like ARPA, a lot. So I think we sort of scratched the surface, but I'd like us to continue to think about how we can do that. And then if you all get the, Congresswoman Bazinski sends out a grant management, a grant update every month. And one of the things that was in this month's update, and I think it's too late for us to do this now, but the USDA is looking for not-for-profit partners to do revolving funds for rural water infrastructure projects. And it's due May 6th, and that's just not a humanly possible thing with the federal grant. But I think we should start talking now in case this money is available next year. And because you have the EPA loan, I'm sorry, not revolving grant, it's a revolving loan fund. If we could get something local like that here and work with a not-for-profit, that would be a game changer. And so I think we should start thinking now in terms of how could we do that infrastructure build out. In terms of for your particular, that's all great, but I just want some ARPA money, Stephanie. A question is, Kathy, what is our available, kind of getting back to Samantha's question earlier, if we as a body wanted to do this, what is readily cash on hand available that we have in ARPA right now? The interest, so it's about $750K in interest? 545 interest, okay. Yeah, so it's about 845. Okay, I thought it was around 745 full bore. All right,
Sorry,
so we
could you repeat what Kathy said? I couldn't
Yeah,
hear.
I'm so sorry. So we have about 545 in interest and 300,000 in principal, basically available. So that's 845. Just to give you one heads up of something that I really think that we're going to need to do is when we implemented the Munis project. For reasons beyond my comprehension, it was part of the original plan, and the previous administration just let it fall by the wayside. We didn't do the treasurer's piece specifically around drainage districts, and we really need to do that. That is a piece of Munis that we need to build out, and I don't know where we're going to get that funding if we don't use ARPA money, and it's going to be over $100K, in the $130,000 range is my guess, and then software costs forever, but. So I think if it was me, I'd put that to the side, and then we have about $700K is what we have. Why I wanted to say all of that is if we do decide to do this, we would have to do an IGA or amended IGA, and that means there would need to be a vote, right? And so if he has a summer construction deadline, we would need to decide sooner rather than later if this is something we want to do in order to have the time to work out that extension. I believe we could just do it, right, Kathy, as an extension of the original agreement, an amendment, but we as a body would have to vote on it, where a lot of things we could just thumbs up. It's not true when it's another government. So I know we just heard about this today. I don't know if the board is comfortable having a conversation, but I would say at the very latest, if we are going to do this, we'd want to vote on it by May, because otherwise I don't think it works with their timeline.
Dr. Storr, I think you were next.
Thank you. How much is the village putting into this?
I just want to maybe add to your statement, sorry, sir, but we will be starting construction in the summer, and it'll be a multi-month process, so it'll go through the fall. So we'll be getting billed a lot. So the village is putting a lot of money into this overall thing. There's all these different projects. So the sewer plant, we've took out $16 million in IEPA low-interest loans. We are also going to have around $5 to $7 million for the sewer interceptor, and then for this phase one, if you all are so kind as to contribute to this, we would have to cash flow the remaining. The additional phases, we would do additional either debt servicing, or if we can identify other grant sources throughout the process of designing out and completing those, we'll do that as well. We've had some preliminary conversations with our engineers about phases 2 and 3 on the project, but this is a multi-year, plan that we're on. So we'll either do grant sources or somehow figure out the low interest financing with the IEPA, which I like your idea about the local type of program, because the IEPA program has been wonderful for us. It's very inexpensive money, and so it's very valuable. But hope it answers your question. And I would also add, the village went through the process and raised sewer rates as well. So the governing body went through the pain of doing that because nobody wants to pay more for your sewer bill, right? So they do have skin in the game on this, but just wanted to add that part in there for you too.
Jamal, did you have a question? All right. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you. Just for clarification purposes, your total request. So at the bottom, I see we are seeking assistance with the $480,759 gap. And then the summary with the additional $451,919.65. I don't know, I'm kind of lost. What is your requested amount, additional requested amount?
It is 480. And the second one, so we did some change orders type of things with the contractor that was selected. And that is what you're identifying there is as a Joe Hackney mistake. I should have changed that amount. So that was my bad.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
JJ, go ahead.
Joe, just one quick question. Elm Street, is that still a state route?
No, the village took control of that decades ago.
Jeff, Mike, I thought I saw an arm down there. Did you guys have questions? Jeff.
I just had a statement, and it was already answered. As far as the timing process is based on your cash flow need. So, although I agree sooner better than later, it was just a reaction, didn't really need to. But you answered the question, so I thought that was good. Thank you. But from a process standpoint, Stephanie, are you thinking the next board meeting or a special meeting or a study session where we figure out how to carve out the money? What are you thinking?
I may be, unless admin has another idea. I think what we've done with all of the water projects is we've sort of let the district that it's in be the driver of the request. So maybe what we could do is have the district that it's in bring to us their thoughts at the cow. And then based on that, if they have thoughts, take that into the full board. And does that seem like a reasonable?
Mr. Esri and I will report at the Bay Cow.
Okay. Admin, is that agreeable?
Yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I just want to add that I do think at the May County Board, there are 2 internal ARPA requests coming, which my personal bias is those should be prioritized. But so just to give you a heads up, we've got the treasurer issue, and then we also have the second phase of our digitization project. Looks like inflation has driven the cost up a little bit, and we'll be needing some additional money to finish that. So,
Any further questions for Mr. Hackney? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll be having continued discussions. All right, moving on to item 3, market study, and Michelle's going to be leading discussion on this.
okay, so we touched on it a little bit earlier, but there's, like 85 different studies that are happening. So there's the needs assessment, which was phase 1. That was the $30,000 of ARPA funds that we allocated and funneled through CU Public Health. So that's a different study. The market study is kind of like the pre-phase of the business plan that they're working on to actually bring in a non-for-profit skilled nursing facility. And the County Board of Health allocated $20,000 from their general fund. They have their own piece of the levy. That's where their money comes from towards that. But it sounds like the market study needs an additional $15,000 before they can, I think, feel comfortable signing the contract and actually moving forward. So this request is for that $15,000 to finish off the market study piece.
Questions? Go ahead.
Mine's not really a question. It's more of a statement. We've had a special session where we invited the public to come and speak to us about the nursing home. We talked about what we want to do to address the need for skilled nursing care within our county. And we also all decided that that should not be something that the county itself does. So short of opening a nursing home, helping the extremely vocal grassroots organization that's going through here, and they're working with a company that works exclusively with nonprofits and attracting them and getting the needs assessment done, getting the market study done so that they can go to the businesses like the hospitals to get the money for the much more expensive phase 3 of their attracting of a nursing home here. I fully support this, and I hope everybody else does.
Jenny.
I think I'd have to go back and check to be sure, but over the 3+ years I've been on the board now, I think the nursing home is the thing I've heard most from people on. So I'd be inclined also to support what people have told me that they're interested in having in this county and support this measure. So,
Samantha.
I would like to ditto both Jens. I think when it comes to our aging community, if we have not had to deal with our parents, grandparents, we will in the future. So I do fully support this, and I hope the board agrees that this needs to be done as soon as possible so they can continue the great work that they're doing. Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Steve. I just wanted to call out, this study is going to look at all of the senior housing needs for independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing care, long-term care. The information that I got from Ann having coffee with her was eye-opening. I never considered like rehabilitation coming out of a hospital before you can go home. Nobody can help with that. So I also agree with everybody that spoke, and this would be a good project to support.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, not that I fault Mr. Farney for making the agenda flow a little better, but one thing that doesn't flow well is we do have a vote coming up about the nursing home resolution, and it's very appropriate that we're discussing this. It's too bad it's not after that. I'm in support of the 15K to get this study off the ground. I think it's one of the things that we're almost obligated to do because we're the ones that allowed it to be sold in the first place, and the loss of beds was inevitable, I think, when that nursing home was voted to be sold. So yeah, I would like to get the study done, and then anything else we can do to help get more beds in Champaign County. I think we're obligated to do almost.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Can we just do like a thumbs up?
It sounds like we have a consensus on that. I would like to say before we do the thumbs up, though, that I see the very strong need for additional beds and rehab beds in our community. I also recognize that every penny of funding that's been going towards this has come from the county. And we have 2 cities, we have villages, we have large medical facilities that would gain extraordinary financial benefit if such a facility was constructed. So I fully support the board giving your thumbs up on this, but also be aware that we lack the capacity to fund the whole project, and there are other entities that have a lot of money and that would benefit a lot from this. So just keep that to the back of your head. But Stephanie, you're the ARPA person. Go ahead and start this out. Do we have thumbs up? All right, we have a clear majority, so all right, thank you. We've got direction there. And that closes our portion for American Rescue Plan. Moving on to try and engage Eric a little bit more here. Can I get a motion from the ELUC chair to make a motion for the approval of the license that we have in our packet? Please read that, if you would, Eric.
I was with you all the way. I really was. I move to approve the recreation and entertainment license for Araceli Gutierrez for a Spanish rodeo at the Champaign County Fairgrounds at 1302 North Kohler Avenue, Urbana, to be held on May 5th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Aaron, have a motion and a second.
Just for some discussion, the sheriff has signed off on this, and that's in your packet, and Mr. Hall is here if you have further questions about it.
Not seeing any questions. I guess John can remain seated. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2024-100 authorizing payment of claims? Can I have a motion? Motion from Leah, second from Beth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2024-101 approving purchases not following purchase policy? Moved by Samantha, second by Lorraine. All right, any discussion? I am amazed. Hearing none? Oh,
I'll just say, wow, this is a big list this month, so I hate to see it, but.
well, I did reach out to the auditor's office, and there had been concerns about bills not being paid on time. Some bills may not have been noted that should have been, so they're making a protracted effort to make sure that absolutely everything is there so you have full awareness. Part of this does have to do, I think, as well with the end of the fiscal year. So, all right, anyone else? Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, thank you. Just a thought. Is there an adjustment to the policy that needs to be made that would accommodate if there's an abundance, or am I just like totally out to lunch on that question?
I'll let JJ answer that. He seems to have an opinion.
Compared to past years, this list is nothing.
Oh, there you go.
Really, it used to be much longer years ago, so this is great.
Okay, thanks.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on now to consideration of a proposal from M&T Bank as to lifting of deed restrictions on the former nursing home property. We'll be seeking an action to approve an agreement in principle and authority to prepare formal documentation. I can give you some background on this. Our outside counsel, Mr. McCarty with Pulcinelli, and our state's attorney's office, Mr. Bannock, have worked with M&T Bank, extended some thoughts in terms of what the county should consider as far as compensation. I was engaged in that, and also then engaged Litigation Chair Thorsland and Vice Chair Michaels to get their approval on this. And the end result that we've put forward tentatively at this point would be a floor amount of $150,000. And if the sale price was over $3 million, that would switch to 5%. So this protects us if it's a very small sale and compensates us at a larger percentage progressively as that price would go up. Both Vice Chair and Chair of Litigation felt that this was agreeable. So what we need from the board now is general approval so that we can let Matt in our state's attorney's office know in terms of moving forward with this. So is there any discussion? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jamala.
Just a question. Does the $150,000 cover our attorney's fees?
It would at this time, with my understanding of where our fees are at now, yes. Further questions? Jeff?
Thank you, County Executive. So the way I'm understanding what I've read, this is basically the best we have based on the position we're in, and there's no more movement whatsoever. Is that true?
I had some feedback from Mr. McCarty with Pulcinelli that unless we were able to come to an agreement, that they were considering simply letting the building stand if they could not get a clear direction in terms of what we were looking for. I think this is a reasonable accommodation. I mean, this has cost the county money, and it's caused damage to the county residents, and I think we deserve some compensation. I don't know that we can do better than this, but this is the negotiated settlement after going around for a little while.
All right, thanks. Just wanted the clarification. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I'll just make a statement. For 13 years that I've been on this board, and it's 13 years last month, the county nursing home has been an issue. Of course, it is not a county-owned piece of property anymore, but it's not the resolution that I don't think anybody wants, but I think it is time to hopefully try and truly resolve this to where hopefully it's, I mean, granted, this isn't, if it were to pass tonight, you could say, you know, kind of a consensus, whatever, that the board's okay with this. It's not the absolute last time it'll be discussed, but hopefully I would hope that this would be the, I guess, first major step in truly resolving this to where this piece of property that was the former county nursing home is no longer an item on any future county board agenda.
Understood. I think we all wish that we could have been able to have found a provider that had come in and reopened the home. And that became clear after time that that was not going to be an outcome. If the board is comfortable with me giving direction to Mr. Bannock to move forward with this, I will do so. If there's any objections, please let me know. But go ahead, Samantha.
I just wanted to say that I think we're doing good if we can at least get those attorney fees covered. At $150,000 being the lowest, you're saying the highest would be 5% of $3 million?
Anything over $3 million, we'll get 5% of. If it sells for $4 million, $5 million, whatever is over, we'll get 5%.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm not seeing any objections, so I will talk with Mr. Bannock and tell him to move forward with Pulcinelli and to contact M&T Bank. All right, thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the last item on the agenda. Auditor Danos, would you please come forward to the computer and give your presentation?
You turn the microphone on, please.
Okay, excellent. Let me get my documents. I'm inserting a USB where my, there we go, I've got all kinds of documents. I'm going to load all the PDFs at once. That makes it easier. The PDFs will be primary source documents that source many of the hard numbers that I'm giving you today. My general thoughts and interpretations will be expressed in a PowerPoint, and then you can see my own homework and my own calculations and workup done in Excel. So let me get back to the drive. You don't want to look at that small print quite yet, I don't think. Let me get the homework up. And I'll start with the PowerPoint, actually. And I'll bounce around between different documents as needed. I do anticipate a lot of questions, actually. So my objective today is to give you the state of the county, the auditor's analysis, a data-driven and experiential approach. In other words, these are very recent numbers of things that actually have come through my office and been paid in 2023. They're fairly recent. We've closed the year completely, and this is an excellent time to tell you what the state of the county is. I think when we talk about forecasts, there is ineluctably a lot of uncertainty, and when we try to forecast the future, we forget how bad our previous forecasts were. There's a lot of hand waving. A lot of times verbal descriptions are translated into numbers, and I object to that. I want to give you the benefit of the institutional knowledge that is unique in me as the only CPA in the county. And with the departure of others, we do not have the same budget director. We don't even have my chief deputy who is a CPA. So my next panel will tell you, addresses my main question. How are we really doing as a county? Our annual budget forecasts, and I will show you, have overstated expenses and understated revenues for years. Therefore, one must revisit old projections and update our understanding of the county's financial position and performance. In other words, how much we've saved up and then how much we're likely to close as a surplus year by year. Administration had, just last year, for example, in 2023, administration forecasted a $655,000 deficit for 2023. Instead, we closed 2023 after transferring the full $3.6 million to CARF with a $1.3 million surplus. Our reserves, and I do want to engage this with the finance director because this is a problem. We're on the modified cash basis. If you go directly to Munis, you can get a figure that understates our reserve by $2.1 million. Our reserve is $17.24 million. It's 37% of annual expense. Rather than the 30% admin had forecast. We ended 2023 up nearly $2 million over expectations. So there I have my little note there. Check my spreadsheet and check my 2023 consolidated fund summary. I'm going to show you where I get that. I don't want you to take anything from me on faith. I will prove everything. And furthermore, my website has a lot of excellent documents. You don't have to have any proficiency or access to Munis. You can look at the monthly reports that are generated out of Munis in the PDF files. So what do the next 4 years look like?
Hey, George, we have one question here. Sorry. Leah?
When do you want questions?
How many minutes have I spoken? Toward the end. Yeah, thanks. What do the next 4 years look like without a second public safety sales tax? Without one. Our general corp reserve is $17,240,000. The public safety sales tax reserve is $7.5 million. My estimate's very unlike the one that you saw at the committee of the whole in March. I'm going to show you my work. Is that we're going to accumulate $18 million in surpluses in the next 4 years. And if you total that up, you're going to have a total of $43 million at the end of 2027. And at that point, we could even pay off the entire jail bond early and avoid 3 years of interest. Subtract that $15.425 million, and you still have $27 million left. Okay, that's all right. So that's above the $24 million, or the $25 million that we have if we had the general corp and the public safety sales tax reserve. Now, I'm going to give you a hint about why this is true, and then I'm going to get right into the numbers. So one more PowerPoint for now. I'll come back. I've got 2 more panels. But one of the biggest disputes I have with the earlier estimates was the discussion on what the court management software would cost to replace. I've faced so much resistance on this. Some people are trying to engage the state's attorney to label my price inquiries as interference in the procurement process. It's simply not true. We don't have a procurement process.
Point of order.
What?
Please just focus on the numbers and make no accusations.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. The high-end estimate, I did price discovery, and I think it was legitimate, Jeff. All right, and I got excellent data, and I will demonstrate to you the Cadillac product. All right, will cost less than or equal to $2.75 million. That's a maximal figure, and that would include all the modules. So the public defender, state's attorney, court supervision, an additional I'm counting up everything. An additional $753,000 would cover interfaces and conversions. This would bring the total one-time cost to $3.41 million. We were told $15 million. It was taken as an article of faith, and it was unsourced. All right. So what are the annual costs that get repeated? The annual licensure for this Cadillac project, I'm not naming any vendor, is $265,000. The annual hosting, if we don't use our IT, would be another $103,000, and so the incremental yearly cost would be $161,000 compared to the annual cost we have for JANO. I'll show that to you. Therefore, the 4-year net cost is $4 million, much less than $15 million. So I repeat, the $15 million figure is quite fortunately merely an unsourced rumor. That amount is several times anything paid by any Illinois county. Now, I'm saying the true picture. Right here, I have the public safety sales tax reserves. I will show you where I get that. If you go into Munis, here you can see my initial. It shows that I logged in. I don't need to, but I could do that. That's one way to get it. The unreserved fund balance at the end of 23 was $4,365,000. The reserve balance, which we hold on to until we're done with capital projects, is $3.2 million. So that's, you add the two, you get the $7.5 million. There is an alternative way to get that. If you go to my website, you can see the balance sheets. Let's see, this 2022, I want 2023, pardon me. This one, excuse me. See, it's right here, highlighted. You got the exact same figure, the $7,565,000. It doesn't, again, it doesn't have to come from Munis. I like this because it's at the end of the year. After we've closed everything, reconciled all interfund obligations. Okay, so here, what is the big picture here? What am I showing you this for? This box is talking about differences from last year. Okay, what we can expect to change the budget. Will make us be better off or worse off financially. Here, okay, so here we've got the reserves in the public safety sales tax fund. Here are the reserves in general corp. This four-year earned surplus is if I take all these figures and sum them up. If you look in the, let me show summaries. I always have that. If you add all, if you take all that and you sum it up, you can see that my formula, my underlying formulas sum everything from B5 all the way through E18. So both positive and negative figures. Now I want to go through these line items. One thing that was not discussed is the fact that last year we saved $1.68 million from the public safety sales tax. And while we didn't show any projections for the future, they're determined by the budget process. I think the best estimate is that we would simply continue to do so. I'm not raising it for inflation because I want the whole thing to be understood in 2024 prices. Both expenditures and revenues go up with inflation, so so there's no point in making estimates on that basis. So I'm keeping that, $1.68 million across the 4-year span. Now, the budget surplus from last year was $1.72 million. I know we've projected a $900,000 budget deficit, but I don't see why. And I'm showing you my projections. Repatriating our detainees. This is a huge item, my next, let me see here, jail. This is pulled from the system. We've got the amount of monies that we sent to the other 3 counties. If you sum up everything in 2023, you see that $2.9 million goes to Kankakee, nearly $400,000 in Macon, only $33,000 in Piatt. Overall, that's $3.3 million in the most recent year, okay? So that is money that comes back to us, all right? That's what I'm putting here compared to now. In fact, if we didn't have to send detainees out, we would have a surplus in 2022. Instead, we had a small deficit. Now, I'm acknowledging that there will be increased costs by bringing the detainees home, but I know what those costs are. $221,000, believe it or not, is the amount that it would take to feed every day with 3 square meals, 104 detainees that are brought home. I'll show you the math on that. It's a little striking. You'll be surprised to know how much meals cost from the vendor. We do have geothermal. Geothermal will actually save us more money than the additional utilities that are costing us at the new jail. Steve is frowning. I'll show you what my computations are on the utilities here.
I'm frowning, George, because I'm trying to figure out the connection between out-of-county and geothermal, which is part of the build-out for the new jail.
Okay,
That
that's
doesn't make
fine.
sense to me.
I'm looking at all changes from the budget. The completion of the jail will have increased costs, some savings, and and a lot of it, reduced costs from hoteling. I'm just taking into account what we can expect to change from 2023 to 2024. At the end of 2024, the building opens, am I not mistaken? Fully. If that's the case, the geothermal will be working.
Are you looking at cost savings for heating and air conditioning?
Let's save the questions for the end. I have estimates on
Go
what
ahead,
geothermal
sorry.
costs. I'm surprised to, listen, this is unprecedented. You never do this to other presentations. Let's go on. I maintain that that's the case, and I have a worksheet, and you can critique it later. Also, I took into account the cost of having a fully staffed corrections department. My estimates are here. I'm estimating that the cost of 10 full new employees in the following year would be about $800,000. After those training costs are assumed, it would be reduced. I know what the numbers are. I know that we have many single occupancy cells. Smile Politely did a very nice article on that. I also have a good idea on what step one new trained corrections officers would be. I examined the FOP contract, so this is sourced. Jano, like I said, if we did the replacement with the Cadillac treatment, it would be $3.4 million, but the increase in the annual cost would be $161,000. I'm totally acknowledging that. And there was some discussion about the ARPA software. It was thought that the software that used to be covered by ARPA would be a lot. It is not. I've got it here. Excuse me, the ARPA software, pull that, it's $168,000 annually. So again, we put that in there. It's in red. I am acknowledging that it's a greater cost, okay? The sheriff had a special plea for 10% pay in addition to the FOP negotiated 5% COLA plus the 1 2/3% step. I think we should hold off on that, but I wanted to do the actual math on a 10% raise. Now listen, this is very problematic. If I have all the data on what we used to spend for each department's salaries in 2018 and what the 24 budget has and what the changes are in all departments, okay? Now the sheriff, if you look at this, his total salary for the 2024 budget is less than $6 million. So 10% raise cannot be more than $600,000. My calculation on the amount of the raise did subtract the amount of his own salary, if you look in the formula bar. And so I corrected the forecast. It's simply not $3 million a year. You cannot support that. Even if you were to oblige him on that request, it wouldn't take place until 2025, and the amount would be $537,000. Moving right along. Employee family health care. We don't give couples and families quite the same coverage. We ask a little bit more when it comes to the employee contribution. I'm trying to get a handle on what the market has, but I assume that what we really meant was that the spouse would pay just as little as the employee does, and that would be extended fully for employee plus children or employee plus family. I have a worksheet on that as well. The health premium, you'll see it's not as great as was estimated earlier because we actually get the full premium on an employee plus spouse is not $10,000 more than an employee, okay? It only jumps up $5,000. So if you, the net benefit is only $500 more under the current system for an employee plus spouse. But if and here, by the way, is Ask Me. I'm gonna use Ask Me as the, for the benefit of the calculations. An employee and spouse have, under the current system, $13,527 of their premium is taken care of by the county. I think that the proposal is to make sure that they're only paying 2 times the $79 employee paycheck contribution. And if that's the case, then I'm coming down here, it would be $158 rather than the $226, and then the net benefit would be $15,300 compared to what used to be $12,000. So that would mean that there's an additional benefit of $2,686 if we're going to cover them that way. I just modeled it. I thought maybe we would get 20 couples that taking advantage of that, 6 employee plus kids, and then maybe 4 full family, where they're currently having to get insurance from other sources, and the total would be $120,000, not $360,000. So I put that into my true picture. Veterans Affairs, you know, I guess we had $750,000 for them every year, jury pay. I have absolutely no difference, and the $1 million for the compression pay adjustments. Now, even if we look at this model, look at what happens down here. We'd still accumulate $8 million over the next 4 years. Now, I am proposing that we'd have a second scenario where we see that keeping JANO would result in no further implementation fees, that there would be $150,000 to accommodate a PD, public defender module, plus the AI smart bench that the courts would like. This saves a lot of money. The sheriff, I say if the sheriff waits for the compression study and has his employees treated just like everybody else, we're not budgeting a separate structural increase there. Veterans Affairs, I did scale it up so that they would attain $750,000 in the last year, but that it'd take a while to get there. So for example, today it's $233,000, so I just smoothed it out in linear fashion. Jury pay, I don't disagree with at all. Now, look at this. Again, our general corp reserve is $17 million. The PSST is $7.5 million. The accumulated surpluses in the next 4 years would be $18 million, leaving us with $43 million. We could pay off the bond for the jail early, and that would still leave us with $27 million. Now, what happens if you add another public safety sales tax? You're going to add another $28 million, and pretty soon your reserves are going to be 100% of expenses, which is, I've never heard of anyone doing that. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to share this. Maybe I need to make the format a little friendlier. Sometimes it's small, I'm sorry. I will release it to the press. They're very much interested in these numbers. Let me get back to my general thoughts, and then we can go back to the spreadsheets if you want to see the pinpoint estimates, excuse me, the hard figures. Yeah, I talked about the savings from repatriating our detainees. And you want to know why I'm passionate about this issue. What's wrong with amassing cash? It's a matter of ethics and political economy. Intergenerational equity is a problem in political ethics. Just as it's wrong to kick the can to make your children pay for benefits that you enjoy now, it's equally wrong to tax the present too much for the sake of future consumption. So debt forces the future to pay for things enjoyed by the present. Hoarding forces the present to pay for things enjoyed by the future. That's why state and local governments normally undertake bond repayment schedules to smooth the costs over the years of the useful life of the large asset purchased and enjoyed during that time period. Makes perfect sense. Extra revenue, okay, I already looked at Jeff when I told him that. Extra revenue could up our reserves to 100% of expenses, which is shocking. And then I say, and this is my morality coming through, it's hard to spend money quickly acquired. It takes time to figure out what to do with it. You notice there are many news stories where lottery winners quickly become ruined. So let's not have the shock of ARPA distort our expectations for the future. And then I'm going to conclude my remarks before I entertain questions. My last panel does also ask, how much must the working poor render unto Caesar each year? Federal income tax starts for a single person at $13,850, much less than minimum wage. That person, her tax rate is 10% until she makes about $24,000, then she's at 12%. The Illinois state income tax starts at the minute you make more than $2,500. That income tax rate is almost 5%. City of Champaign sales tax is 9.5%. The public safety sales tax, a second one rather, would bring it to 9.75%. If you eat at a restaurant, it's 11.75%. So your marginal income, your marginal tax, and you're pretty much consuming everything and spending everything you have when you're in that wage bracket, is 28.7%. So if you want to go out to eat, you have to earn $1.37 to pay for a dollar of food. And that's what I resent about this type of thirst for additional revenue. I'm open to questions.
I would like to jump in first. Chair's privilege. I have rarely had a presentation where I feel more like a rubber ball that's been bounced off the walls. You're throwing things out that I don't see really even apply to the point at hand.
Which is what?
Well, let's just jump to the first one. Your JANO software estimate is nowhere near what our circuit clerk has spoken with us about in terms of talking with the folks in Vermilion County who have implemented it. I mean, they're talking, they've talked, no, this is me speaking now, George, you need to be quiet. They've come up with an estimate of about $18 million, George. Now, that's from a county, that's
You're lecturing me during my own presentation. Steve,
George,
ask a question.
Point of
you can
order.
answer my
Point of
question.
order, point of order. Let
It's my
one
deal with
person
the point of order,
speak at
please.
one time.
George, let me continue. You have time to answer the questions. With regard to the JANO software, I have no idea where you've come up with your numbers because they do not align with the numbers that we've heard from the circuit clerk's office and from McLean County that's actually implemented it. You're talking about end of county boarding when our sheriff has clearly told us that will not end. We will still be boarding prisoners out of county. He just does not know the number at this point yet. You talk about the VAC being looked at in incremental pieces. According to the legislature, we owe those funds when they ask for them. We do not have the ability to track that out and say, oh, we'll give you a few here, and a few dollars here, and a few dollars here. So I have no clue where a lot of this is coming from, George. You've not given a basis for this. I'll look forward to looking at your PowerPoint more closely, but honestly, I don't know what other questions to ask because of even the presentation format, but I'm sure there's other people here that do as well. Jenny.
I thought I was to answer your question first.
Okay, then which of them would you like to answer, George?
Yeah, you had several. It's hard to keep up with you. You have so many objections. Right here's the emails that were released, and you saw at the last committee of the whole. And this is from our current vendor. This is from JANO, okay? So he, George Donos, asked if there was a setup fee included, but since they are an existing customer, I told him there would not be. We already paid the millions of dollars for JANO, Steve. Why do you think that continuing with the same product includes a new implementation? And where'd you get the $18 million figure from?
It's a replacement of JANO, George.
That is what I'm saying would occur if we maintain JANO.
JANO is not maintainable according to our circuit clerk.
I'm telling you the most expensive Cadillac product costs $4 million over 4 years. Okay, so.
All right, the other points I mentioned were the VAC and housing out of county. You've made no adjustment for out of county continuing?
I spoke, just a second. I didn't say that there would never be a single month during peak during which we would have people out of, I could model that, but that does not make a material difference to my estimates because we have 109 people out and even Kankakee can't satisfy them. We are charged on a per detainee basis, you know that. So just a moment, I mean, if you add 109 to the 177 from the old pod, it does not attain to the 300, which is the capacity we'll have when we're at full. So we already do not have to have excess people out. Of course, you could say it's early spring.
The sheriff has told us that we do. The sheriff has told us that we will.
In the same numbers, you're hand waving. Even Stephanie acknowledged that we would bringing the detainees home would save us money, and she got an estimate from the sheriff that there would still be $740,000 in costs associated with that. Actually, our numbers are in agreement, but my numbers cover the correctional officers because I thought of that. VAC. Jeff, did you understand what I was proposing? I was not saying that we're limiting them. I'm saying that it will take time for those projects to add up. They're entitled to it. I know what the statutory, the unfunded mandate is. All I'm saying is, this year, Steve, your budget says $233,000. Do you feel guilty that you didn't give them $1 million this year?
I worked closely with the VAC, and the VAC worked with us to try and minimize the pain that it was going to cause the county because they understood we did not have a revenue stream to fund those dollars.
We do. I've proven it. And by the way, are you allocating $750,000 to them in the 2025 budget?
Go ahead, Stephanie.
As finance chair, one of the things that we've discussed with the VAC is that we understand our obligation and that we would like to get to it as quickly as possible. If we pass a public safety sales tax, we would have the ability to reallocate money that is currently in the general fund paying for public safety sales tax needs in order to do that. If not, the plan is in 2025 on the municipal election to go for the allowable revenue stream that the state set up for a special levy specifically. So the reason that they have agreed to the 223, and if you've been following, they actually wanted an additional couple $100,000 at the last meeting, and we were able to calm that down. If they decide they want it next month, we have to give it to them, is because they know we're working on revenue. So they understand that one of the reasons that we're going for public safety sales tax is in order to pay for that. And if for some reason this board decides not to do that, or the voters decide that they don't want us to do that, we would then immediately on the municipal election put that referendum out in order to specifically pay for that. Because to be clear, and I want this to be abundantly clear, if we have to pay the VAC the full bore of 0.02% of our EAV,
it's $1 million.
we will be out. Our entire general fund will be depleted before the end of this decade.
Absolutely
Or,
not.
yes, or it will be.
Absolutely
it
not.
will-
I just showed you. Look at, there's $43 million. Let's put $1 million in there like you want. Okay, and I'll make these equal to that. Look at this, does not change the picture that I'm telling you. You know, you have to add and subtract. You can't just cite legislation and to be clear, the municipality might have a dedicated levy, et cetera. Look at that. You still have $41 million to pay $15 million off the jail bond early. You have $26 million to deal with your compression promises and everything else. You need hard numbers. You need hard numbers. I'm going to work with Travis if you release them to me. One more thing, forecasts. You know, I mentioned forecasts. Look at this graph here. The blue line is reality. The orange line were the forecasts associated with that year. You can see that since 2018, we've done better than the forecasts in every year. And also, I do want to point out that the general corp is healthy and growing. That's the blue line. The orange line is if certain people on this board had their way and we maintain a $4 million hemorrhage in supporting the nursing home, we would be in the red as of this year.
I fail to see how the nursing home is germane to any of this subject
I
conversation.
put it on the graph. I need to explain it. Jenny? Can I call on my questioners? Thanks.
Sorry, you said at the beginning that you weren't pulling these numbers from Munis, and I'm unclear as to where this information is coming from then. But where does your website get it from?
Could you please sit at the microphone so we can hear you online, please?
I'm really still just unclear then where, okay, if it does come from Munis, but it doesn't come from Munis, like who pulls the information? How does this get populated? Like where are these numbers coming from?
Yeah, IT processes the PDFs that are on my website.
But PDFs can't be just magically generated. Like where does the number come in from?
It's coming from the Munis system.
Okay, but you said it wasn't coming from Munis. Like I'm really unclear.
No, as a retail agent, I don't have to log into Munis to get my own spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are placed, they're finished product derived from Munis, which I access. I go into Munis from time to time, but when we have compiled data, the compiled data is more useful to me than pinpointing specific transactions in Munis. These are monthly summary reports. So I showed you many examples, like look at this consolidated statement, for example. Remember I said, well, we were able to save 100, right here, 1,680,000 was saved to the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. I know that because that's at the end of the year. And this is after everything's been done on the books and it was even run as recently as April 11th, okay? Now, this figure is not going to be obvious until the end of the year. I could go into Munis, but really my most comfortable, adequate number is going to be generated on this monthly report on the balance sheet. So we're not going to get into technical details. You can talk to IT about how they help generate these reports. Jen? Okay.
Okay. I have several questions. Please bear with me with them, okay? First, I want to congratulate you on your crystal ball for knowing our needs for the JANO replacement before the committee has even determined what our needs are. So
No.
thank you for your crystal ball.
I'm giving you a range. I'm happy to oblige. I didn't want any hand waving. I wanted to source some data.
Well, data is only relevant if we know it's applicable to our needs. So I hope you're right. You're painting a much different picture than our financial advisors have. I hope you're right. I don't think you are, and here's why. The role of an auditor, the role that I sat here in December, well, over there in December, and defended was an auditor is there to detect and deter fraud. That's the role. The role of the auditor is to do those pinpoint inspections so that we don't turn into a municipality that loses millions of dollars to fraud. But your crystal ball, I hope, is correct, even though we don't know what those needs are. However, we don't need a committee. We have you to make a spot check, and now we know it will not be $15 million, even though peer communities have paid that. It won't be that.
From scratch, from having nothing.
Sir, what we have in place right now, was put in place when I was in high school. I have since passed the bar exam, I have since worked, I have since raised children, and now I'm here. I graduated from high school a very long time ago. What we have likely does need to be replaced. The people that use it every day say how ineffective it is. The committee that's seeking our needs with it say that we need to replace it. But I hope you're right, it's going to be less. That would be fantastic. Another thing that I want to address from your presentation is that you say that the extra revenue, amassing extra revenue would be morally wrong. I would posit that it's morally wrong to have employees that we are not paying effectively. I would posit it's morally wrong for us to train officers at a large price tag for them to leave in 2 years to go be officers somewhere else that can actually pay them for their bravery and for what they do. We don't do that. And so the cost of the sheriff's request, which the revenue would go to, includes training, which is just sunk costs every time. Every time we have to train someone, that's a sunk cost. Have you considered that in your calculations?
Yes.
Our eternal revenue, our eternal turnover, because it's morally wrong for us to raise enough funds to pay our people properly. And I just want to really reiterate one statement you make that just sits very terrible. Compiled data is more important to our auditor than pinpointing specific files. As someone who defended the auditor as a position, it makes me cringe inside to hear my auditor saying that, because I am a very boring social circle. I am married to an audit professor. I live next door to an audit professor. I understand that there's audit, there's managerial, there's tax, and there's financial accounting. You're our auditor, not our financial accountant. And so I just wish that you would care about specific files. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I will address that. And thank you for bringing it up, because when I speak rapidly, and I feel forced to speak rapidly, you don't convey things with as much nuance as you would intend. One thing I was concerned about when I was looking at what the changes would be to our budget with respect to the sheriff and correctional officers was not to double count. Of course, that's a big topic in accounting. If you adequately pay them, you then reduce training costs. If you have good retention, I think that Jeff did ascertain that from the sheriff, you can't double count great and high retention costs at the same time. You've got the adequate salary boost. I'm not against the salary boost. All I'm saying is you can see what you have afterwards. And I also was showing that the 10% estimate simply wasn't 3 million. The other point you made was that I'm against pinpointing things. And I just pinpointed something today. I'm not discussing it. It has to do with a particular reimbursement that I thought was not handled correctly. I do look at that, but that's not all I do. The auditor is not only the AP supervisor, which is what you're referring to, how things are spent, but also the general accountant. I'm responsible for the audit. Okay, so the audit statements have to be correct, and these are compiled after the end of the year, and these are summary data, and this gives me a very good picture on what happens within the time span of a year. So, let's continue to talk, because I want us to be in harmony about what my role is, can be, and to the extent that you object, should not be. Stephanie.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions and then just a couple of points of information where I think perhaps we're speaking past each other. So the first question is, you talked about the $7.565 million reserve, public safety sales tax general fund reserve. Can you walk us through how we got to that? Like, what were the financial decisions that we got to that, and what was the revenue generated that got us there?
Well, first of all, you have the tax, that's the revenue.
Yeah, no, but I mean, so, like, that's quite a jump, right, in reserve. So what was it that got us to, like, what were the driving forces that grew that reserve? What were the reasons for it? Where did that funding come from? Why did we let it get to there?
First of all, money's fungible, so there are things that I'm combining. I think the most important metric is the addition of the general corp and the public safety sales tax, because those two funds have a lot of flexibility, and some things that we spend in one, we could spend the other. You agree with that?
Yes, no, but what I'm asking you is, what were the policy decisions and what were the revenue and expense differences that allowed us to get to a $7.5 million fund reserve?
I will show you.
Was it just accidental, do you think? Why is that reserve like that, is what I'm asking you.
I think you're asking me a question about recent history that I would have to think about. It's not just a moment. Okay. I don't want to play gotcha. Okay. But I did look at the uses of the PSST. Let me show you. I didn't show you this earlier because I was showing you that as my board member Jenny Lakshan asked, don't I pinpoint in munis? I mean, of course I do, and I'm showing you I can here, but I'm not limited to doing so. Now, this is directly out of munis here. What's going on with the public safety sales tax? Now, this was taken in before the end of the year, so this is transfer out. I mean, the uses of the public safety sales taxes to pay for all the utilities associated with justice and public safety. We also have the retirement of principal on some bonds that will retire in a couple of years, and things that basically are tagged for justice and public safety.
So yeah, I've spent a lot of time looking at that chart, and I think I've mentioned this to the whole board. One thing, that $608,000 in utilities is going to have to switch over. The vast majority of it is going to have to switch over to the general fund. Not the vast majority, but a piece of it, because we are no longer going to be allowed to spend the sheriff's utilities as a separate, because they're going to be in the full building. So to answer the question, and why I asked the question, and I'm honestly not trying to say gotcha, is if we're going to do a forecast, and if we're going to understand the revenue flow, and I do agree that the two of those funds work together, one of the things that we have to do is understand why they are the way that they are. What were the decisions that were being made, right? And what is driving those decisions for the future? So that is a very large fund balance in public safety sales tax. It's an intentionally large public safety sales tax fund balance. It's been driven by several things. In the last 2 years, we've had some of the greatest performing sales tax in the history of the United States and in the history of our county. That number has flattened. I believe the quarterly number, or the for 2024 right now, the growth in sales tax is 1.89% or something like that. It is coming really, really close to flat. So that sort of driving factor, right? There was other things that happened, including cannabis revenue, which we don't know what that amount was. That includes sales tax, and also leveling the playing field money that for sales tax. So so we are like in a perfect storm of sales tax money. The thing that allowed us to grow that fund was twofold. One, it was the overperformance of revenue, and you're right, the projections, it was really difficult to project during the pandemic and in the years after the pandemic, and every forecaster has projecting a flattening of the economy, which many indicators, including the News Gazette just did a big write-up about this, seem like we are coming to that point. And in a capitalist society, we always go through flattenings, and we're due one, right? But the other thing is we were able to save a lot of money because we budget for full employment, and we've had dozens of openings. And so the financial staff working with the board have made the decision for the last 2 years in order to take that money that should have gone for out-of-county housing, right? And because we were about $1 million in savings because of primarily the circuit clerk's office having not having full employment, which they do now. Congratulations to Susan. She was able to get her staff up. And as we've had a lot of conversation, corrections and other positions as well, right? That $1 million of savings meant that when the bill came due for out-of-county jail, the amount of that bill that was put on public safety sales tax, we didn't have to take it from public safety sales tax because our general fund was performing so well. Now, this is not a model that we want to continue. We don't want to be a county that is understaffed. We have to fully budget, right? If there's going to be a staff line on the budget, we have to fund it, right? And so hopefully we are going to be getting away from that situation. What we did, though, is we made that decision to intentionally put that money into the public safety sales tax fund, right? In order to have a reserve for the JANO replacement or the JANO update. And I will freely say, it does not have to be a replacement, but we have to, as Ms. Locke said, let the committee decide that, right? So why I'm saying that it's so important to understand where the money came from and what those decisions were, if you're going to make a forecast, right? You have to understand that history because there's reasons for it. Reasons that we have discussed in this board for hours. Reasons that I have discussed with admin for hours, right? So just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet without understanding that context means that you cannot give us an accurate picture of what's going forward. And the two things that I think we're actually speaking past each other on are this. You mentioned several times the $3 million from the sheriff, and I believe that was from my presentation at the COW. That $3 million from the sheriff, and again, I don't know that this is necessarily your fault because you're not part of the deliberations that we have in this body, was not just for staffing by any means. The sheriff, as part of our deliberations over public safety sales tax, gave us a 4-page memo with things that he wanted to do in his office, specific things that went from staff increases to increased drug court, increased services because we have this new judge, right? All sorts of different things. So it isn't just one thing, right? And his memo, when you added it all up, was between $3.5 and $4.5 million. And I was like, look, we can't give him that much money, right? And so I was like, $3 million is like, but so because it is a public safety sales tax, but right, it wasn't just a raise for his employees. It was multiple things. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention is you had mentioned, I think, again, this was like we were talking past each other. When we were saying the $360,000 for family insurance, we meant full family, 20 full families, not You're right. The coverage for a spouse, it's not great, but it's not. The problem that we have is the coverage for families is prohibitive. That's what we were talking about. And so if maybe I misspoke in the meeting or that, but those two numbers in particular, I don't think you understood where I was generating them from. And so therefore your disagreement with them is because that you aren't representing the numbers that I actually presented.
Okay, I'd love to work with you on that. It's a special interest of mine. And to see that we're aligned with the employee contributions that other public employers have. It doesn't take away, it doesn't change the picture I'm painting. The picture I'm painting, in large part, does derive from my strong disagreement with the $15 million guess that the Jano replacement would cost. I think that kind of drives the need. And so I'm calling it, yeah, go ahead. I call it into question.
So if you call, and again, just our numbers disagree. And listen, like when I was finance chair before, under previous life, the auditor would come literally almost every cow and give a presentation. Under all of the Republican auditors that I was with, like literally every month. And JJ would come, and just to be perfectly blunt, sometimes I disagreed with his numbers, and JJ and Tammy would get into it, and they would have different perspectives on financing. Mostly JJ told us the sky was falling at all times, so I don't know, you're like the optimistic auditor, and he was the pessimistic auditor. But the thing is this, and this is no shade at you, okay? Because I actually agree with Jen, it's not the role of the auditor. If I'm going to look at budget forecasting, I'm going to go with the person who got our bond rating up and to AA1 bond rating, the highest it's ever been. I'm going to go with the person who has gotten us a budget award for every budget. I'm going to go with the person that we just hired. And one of the reasons, I don't know if you'll understand this, that we hired Travis, that we picked him, is because of his tremendous expertise in budget forecasting. He built out an entire dashboard for the city of Champaign. This is what he does. It's his wheelhouse, right? So like, and I'm also going to go with the people in those offices. So when the sheriff tells me numbers, I'm going to go with what he tells me, right? When the people that are on the committee with Jano, and I'm hoping that if Jano came in like this, right, what I would then do with that excess money is put it into CARF, put it into public safety CARF, so that if we do have to do, I was on the phone today with the state's attorney, and she was telling me her concern with the courthouse isn't even so much the space needs, it's the lack of ADA accessibility that we currently have in the courthouse. If we could put the money that we should be putting into CARF for public safety right now, we wouldn't maybe, I agree, then have to bond out later. It would be awesome. So if Jano came in, if that committee is like, hey, let's keep what we have and not have to completely replace it, then that would be great. But the only way to do that would, and I'm sorry, at this point we fundamentally disagree, is we would have to pass an additional public safety sales tax. And I will also say this, I actually think that we could get away with a public safety sales tax that was an 1/8 cent. But the state doesn't let us do that. It's 1/4 cent increments. And so I do think the revenue that it will bring in, let me be clear, it will never give us 100%, but we will have enough money to do some of the things that we want to do, like the jury pool pay and putting, once the bonds are retired, money into CARF, and actually continuing to do our 5% commitment to preventing juvenile delinquency, and maybe one day even expanding that to 10%. Because I do, and fully funding the veterans, right? Like, I do think that $7 million a year would allow us to do all of that. I think we could balance our books on $3.5 million a year. But that is not an option with the state. And again, we're gonna discuss this more. And the other thing is, I feel like there's this idea, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I kind of feel like I've earned it because I've been in the press a lot lately. I welcome debate about the public safety sales tax. anytime that you're thinking about increasing a tax, it should make you pause. Right? This is a decision that we are trying to ask the citizens of our county to make. It shouldn't be an easy decision. I will be perfectly blunt. On every questionnaire I've ever done about sales tax, I have always said no, even though I know whatever political questionnaire that the people giving it to me want me to say yes. Any tax should be something that we debate rigorously and get different opinions on, right? We disagree completely and wholeheartedly. I disagree with basically every number you put up there. However, I appreciate it because the best kind of debate about public policy has those kind of conversations. And that's what I have to say.
Incidentally, on the lower right, you have the CARF balance at the end of 2023. It's a negative number because it's on the equity side of the books. It's $20.5 million. That's what CARF had at the end of 2023.
Further questions? Go ahead, Chris.
I too enjoy spreadsheets, and even though I won't have much of an idea where some of the numbers came from that you post, if you're going to share this information with the media, I'd appreciate it if you'd also share it with the county board.
Of course, it's not a finished.
And also,
you got it first. You got the scoop. I've shared it with county board. You want the spreadsheet itself? You're saying? Of course.
all the spreadsheets.
Of course.
And the PowerPoint.
Of course.
And Dr. Furtado stole my thunder, as it were. I remember JJ giving us auditors' reports, and I remember Tammy's giving us her forecasts and the discussions, and I missed those. And some of it got lost during COVID, but I'd certainly welcome not kind of getting a surprise and after, and like to see more of this. I think these discussions could go on better month to month rather than as a surprise presentation.
I'm happy to be told that I'm always on the agenda every committee of the whole. I appreciate that very much.
Jenny.
I didn't know if this was included in there, but I get the feeling that there's going to be a request for increase in elected official salaries as well. Is that addressed in your numbers, or is that part of the salary compression, or how do you figure that in?
Well, I could add it there. Just a moment. I'm telling you, you're skeptical or something. The salary proposal that I think you have, and you have my calculations, I think you have the spreadsheet.
I think you had asked for basically 17.25% raise.
Okay, you have to realize that a 0% raise for 4 years, while the price level went up more than 20%. What I'm asking is that we all have the exact same, and that we all catch up to inflation, and so that all elected officials have what the same purchasing power the county clerk did in 2017, the reference year. So I don't think I'm asking for anything unfair, but if you want to know the amount and the impact on the budget, I will add that to the spreadsheet, which will be made available to you before the Finance Committee review meets in May, okay? But it's going to be on the order of 50 to 60,000 a year. I think offhand is what my prediction is on that.
I don't, you're looking to get all elected officials at the same salary across the board?
Well, not the sheriff and the state's attorney.
Well, no, they get paid not by the county, but that, yeah, to me, it seems kind of simplistic to think that everybody earns the exact same amount because you don't all do the same work.
What's weirder is to sit there and to split hairs and figure out who is the circuit clerk, 97.5% of the county clerk. And the thing is, the system used to be one where one class would get recalibrated and be ahead of the other, and then it would change. And so they would crisscross. JJ will affirm this for me. But what happened last time was the presidential class stayed low, and the even lower than the midterm class, and then the midterm class went way up. Okay, so it was like they were skipped, they were lapped, okay? And we're not even correcting that because it's passed. My spreadsheet, I don't have it here, but my spreadsheet shows that in other counties, they're far more compressed, compression, salary compression. They're very much more compressed, and sometimes it's the other way around. In Madison County, the auditor makes more than the county clerk, okay? So I think it's a wash, to be honest. And we'll talk about it with other countywides, ones that are on the other side, on the midterm side. Okay, thanks.
Go ahead,
Samantha.
Thank you. I have reached out to you like I have reached out to all elected officials. Something that I did speak with Dr. Storr about, those monthly in-person updates. They are needed and will be appreciated because I feel like as the board and the elected officials, with all that's going on, we have lost that connection of working together, okay? So as I've stated to you and other county officials, that would be much appreciated if it's not on a monthly basis, either on a every 3 months basis or quarter base, okay? But we need to have that contact and update, instead of just telling people, oh, it's on the website, oh, it's on the website. Well, what if somebody doesn't have an internet service, right? So at least they could at least watch TV and be able to keep track of what's going on with the county. That's my first suggestion. I am interested in the sheriff's numbers, okay? The reason for his ask and what's going on with the elimination of cash bail. Okay, so this is something that is not resonating with me, which I've shared with others. Why are we asking for more and more staff if we're having less inmates, okay? I've been sidetracked these last couple of weeks. There's so much going on that puts me off of what my goal was, and that is to get a clear picture from the courts and the sheriff's department, because those are our two biggest asks. I have not been able to do so, but I've spoken with somebody in every elected official's office since I've started since I've been elected February 22nd. Okay, the other thing. I am interested in the $15 million general expense. That's something that's been hovering over this board for a long time. We know it needs to be done. How do we do it? So I will, appreciate those firm numbers once they are received, because that is the biggest expense that we're facing. If we can include upgrades, I think that would be our best route for the budget, of this $15 million versus even if it's less than $15 million. If we can add the add-ons, I would appreciate that. I don't think we as a county should say, oh, brand new, $15 million, if we know that is going to take us over the cliff, okay? The other thing I wanted to mention, the $3 million current cost detainee, and then you dropped it to $221,000?
I was saying that would be the cost to feed them once they come back. Like, we would have more food costs because the food costs are being taken care of by Kankakee. So I'm saying when we get the 109 back, let me show you that. Can I show you that on the this is surprising. This is interesting, people. And it's a lighter note because, we've gone through a lot of back and forth, but the savings from repatriating our detainees, so the top line saving was $3.3 million. That's what you were referring to. Food costs, when you have 104 placed out, believe it or not, it's $1.94 a meal. And 3 meals times 365 and a quarter days per year, because, one out of every 4 years you have a leap day like we did this year. And that comes to $221,000. So I mean, we have to back that out of the $3.3 million. The net savings is at the bottom. It's $2.6 million a year. I know Steve disagrees with the geothermal savings. And I did account for the 10. I think I counted fairly for the 10 correctional hires, but I mean, you could. If I don't know how much you want me to get into it. It seems like I get a lot of resistance, but I'm more than happy to work with departments to come up with firm numerical estimates. I'm sorry. I have a master's in math, and I've got the data in the system, and that the department head doesn't always think about the data in the systematic way that an accountant would. So I'm happy to help the department heads come up with estimates.
Thank
Just,
you.
just a point that in terms of providing information to the board, waiting till May is not good. We've got a meeting next Tuesday, so it would be good to provide it to the board ahead of that. Jen Locke? We have a special meeting next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Okay. Ms. Locke?
I had just, I had a question about where you're getting the numbers. You'd said you're happy to work with the department heads, but did you specifically speak to Captain Bogus or our sheriff about how many will still be housed out of county? Because I see 0 numbers for still being housed out, and they've given us estimates, so.
Your mic, George, sorry.
Yeah, I did speak with Captain Vogus, and then I had a follow-up with Sheriff Hoyerman.
Okay, so in speaking with them, they would have told you that there's an estimate that a certain number would have to still be out, and even just an estimated number would have to continue to be housed out of county, yet your presentation today is telling us there's $0 for out of county.
Just a moment. It's gonna, okay. All I'm saying is materially, it's not like we'll still have 109 outside of the county, right? And I'm saying that we like currently we have 19, the full, what we're gonna have at the end of the current year, we'll have 20, we'd have 19 vacancies. Sometimes we'd have 50 vacancies. There may be a few times when we still have to house people outside of the county, but I think it would be single digits really, and it's not gonna change the dynamic. Okay, so what you could be saying, Jen, is that bringing them home would not save us $2.6 million a year. It would be only $2.4 million a year because many times we might have to have some. Now that's a very specific estimate, and I'm not pretending to be that precise. I'm getting as close as I can. The bigger number is the repatriation of the 109.
I guess I'm just saying that there's a level of insincerity to say that the numbers are what matters and then to not include the numbers. And when we've heard an estimate, and we have also heard, and as someone who's worked with this population, there will very likely be times where we have vacancies here and a bill in multiple counties. We have people in multiple counties for safety reasons, not just for overflow reasons.
Jen, I'm not proposing any cuts to anybody or anything like that. All I'm saying is I'm trying to get a handle on the bottom line number by having numbers that are neither over nor understated across components, and that's what I have for that. So it could be that we could save more than that. It actually is, it could be, but I think that's a fair number. So there's no insincerity, I assure you. I can't promise granularity about the future. I'm trying to get as tight a handle as I can. I say hard numbers because they're from the recent past.
And I guess that's my one other question, because this is all based on review of the last year. And it's fair to say that 2023 is not representative of every year in the last 4 or 10, and it's certainly not necessarily representative of 2024, 25, 26, 27. It's one year. It's one data point.
But you have to respect that.
But you need at least 2 to make a line and 3 to make.
I'm not drawing lines. I'm not drawing lines. Just a second. I did consult all my old the previous year financial reports. That's why I put the graph. The graph, of course, is a line and does have trend. Stephanie.
So the number that you're looking for, Jenny, on the proposed increase to the election officials, so it's $19,376 per, and the standard for when you're calculating benefits is 30%. So that would be an $86,565 a year increase is what that was asked for.
Okay, now I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What if we did nothing and we just went along with the resolution that was passed in 2021? How much is that increase?
I haven't done that math.
That has to be subtracted from that figure to come up with the difference that I'm proposing. Okay, so Member Lakshin, it's not as though everything would be what it is today except for my proposal. My proposal is altering it from something that's already baked in, and it alters it by maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of what's baked in. In other words, what my proposal would do would raise it on December 1st by 80 instead of 60, okay? It's not 80 from 0. So my incremental increases, you know what it is? I know what it is, because catching up with inflation, it's $10,000 per certain, and then for because mine was going to be at 109, and then I said 119, so that's 10, but for others it would be 5 because they were already there, almost already there, so it's 20, 30. It's about 40,000 difference compared to if you did nothing and relied on the 2021 resolution. But again, it's just to get us caught up with inflation. I don't think there's anything unfair about it.
The current existing is half a CPI, so that's.
Yeah, I think that what Jen wants is like actual annual total salary numbers.
So it's, half a CPI, so.
CPI, I mean, CPI would be very small,
Right.
tiny, but
That's
over enough time,
Right.
you know, it makes a difference.
Yeah, but that's what it is. It's half a CPI. So you make like, what, 97 right now? So in CPI is 4,
No.
so there'd be 2, so.
No, it's not half CPI from what I have today. It's half CPI in the future after the recalibration, which was 109.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Your proposal is the recalibration.
The recalibration's from 109 to 119.
Right.
And then it asks for full rather than half CPI going forward.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, I don't know, maybe this is the toughest question. So I've had dozens and dozens of conversations about the public safety sales tax
Yes.
with county-wide elected officials.
Okay.
I've had conversations with the treasurer, and she's not elected, but the public defender, the sheriff, and the state's attorney, and all of them are in agreement. I get calls from them sometimes yelling at me that I have not been adamant enough. I'm like, I don't know how to be more adamant about it. I have never spoken to you about this. In fact, until I read it in the newspaper, I didn't even know that you were against it. So if you are so against the public safety sales tax, and I'm the finance chair and I'm out there constantly talking about it, is there a reason that we've never spoken about it? And to be blunt, why should I listen to you instead of the treasurer, the sheriff, two different finance directors, the state's attorney, and the public defender, all of whom have intimate and specific understanding of their budget needs and where they're falling short?
That's a great question. And my answer is they're looking at their own budgets rather than the composite budget. And there is no reason, unless they're looking at the numbers like a numbers guy, like an accountant would, there's no reason for, just a second, there's no reason for them to know whether or not a PSST is required for them to be adequately funded. They're relying on information you gave, Stephanie. I'm giving an alternative narrative. Now they might change their minds. Let that process take place. They are not an input, they're an output. Go ahead.
So let me be real clear. What you're saying is, no, they're not relying on me. I gave my presentation a month ago. I've been talking to these folks for like over a year. They're asking for it because of the budget process. They're asking for it because when they go in and they make their budget and they're told yes and no and this is what we can do, right? That's why they're asking for it, not because of the presentation I gave a couple weeks ago.
I'm not referring to that.
Right.
I'm
So
not
my
referring to that.
question is, so is your argument that like we as a county are intentionally keeping money from our offices? Like that there's this pot of money that we're just not letting folks have that are doing the job of our county? Is that like, so your argument is.
I got your point. Can I continue?
Yeah,
All right?
no, but I mean, is that what you're saying? Because like, I'm trying to understand, like what you're saying.
Yeah, I've been misunderstood. Many things that I say and have done have been misconstrued. In this entire month, which is still Lent for me, incidentally. And I can't wait for May 5th, which is my Easter. I would say, this is, don't worry about that aside. Jeff came to my office, he saw my icon. My answer to you is I am not saying, and I'm not inferring the thought process of anybody that you've spoken to. I mean, I just don't even understand your question. My point is that the scare tactics have convinced department heads that there's no way they could be adequately funded from the general fund or from the public safety sales tax unless they got an additional one. And I'm just saying, I'm looking at the total numbers, and we can accumulate so much that they could be taken care of without resorting to a second public safety sales tax. I was shocked that any department head would say, oh, I'm for it because I need more money, as if the only way they could get the money they're expecting is from this additional increase. It depends on your analysis of the whole picture.
So just to be clear, what I asked is what you're saying. What you're saying is me and not just one budget director, but two budget directors are intentionally tricking the departments so that they don't get the money that they need.
Are you quoting them? Did the finance directors tell department heads that they need the PSST to get the funding that
No,
they're...
I'm saying,
All right.
and what I'm saying is, the department heads are saying there's needs that we don't have money for.
So,
hey,
fine.
Stephanie, help me.
Fine.
I'm asking you, why would they be saying that if we're sitting on this pile of money? And what you just answered is, yeah, that's what you're saying I'm doing.
No. I disagree with your forecasts. I disagree with the henny penny approach. And I think that you've scared people, and they should not support a PSST, which is not needed for us to make them whole. In other words, my projections stand. There's a lot, the problem with the pessimistic projection is it builds a case for additional revenue, and then, unless you go on a spending spree to prove me wrong, you wind up having a lot more money than you ever wanted. So I'm just saying the projections are wrong, Stephanie. I don't know why you can't understand. I'm saying I disagree with your projections. I don't think we'll have a $900,000 deficit that's structural next year or after that, because the whole history of the forecasts show that there's been built-in pessimism. I'm not talking about the current budget director. He has not completed a budget on his own. All of them have come from the previous one, and she has a certain style. And it's got a pessimistic bias.
And just to be clear, that certain style is what got us to financial security,
I
whereas
agree.
before,
I agree in
and got
spades.
us an A1, double A1 bond rating,
And
which has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Stephanie, that proves my point. If we continue going that way, we'll wind up having too much surplus.
JJ.
Sure.
Could you go back to, I think it was slide 2.
That one?
Let me see. Not the one that's on the screen right now.
This one?
No, I'm wrong. If you would, flip through a couple more. I'll recognize it when I see it.
No problem. Okay, so then, I know, you've got to be this one?
No.
Is it numerical?
No, it wasn't a numerical one, but you made a comment about morality.
Ethics.
Ethics.
It was here.
It was on that one. Okay. I've got to ask you, since you brought up ethics,
Yeah,
and you worked on this last week,
sure.
I have a copy of your internet browsing history here that I FOIA'd.
Oh, okay. You want to really do this
on April
now?
12th, yeah, I do, because if you're going to lecture us on this, I'm bringing this up. April 12th.
Point of order. We're talking about the audit presentation.
Mr. Chair, that's for you to rule on. I'm
going to permit him to ask the question.
This is not a gotcha question. Okay, then I'm just going to let the board know. I'll just make a comment. While this presentation was being created, I guess, April 12th, 3:17 p.m. Mr.
Point
Danos
of order.
was on the
Point
Illinois
of order. We are listening to the
meeting,
auditors,
Samantha.
but we're listening to the auditor's presentation.
Samantha, you don't have the floor.
Mr. Danos was on the Illinois Department of Elections website filing his campaign finance report. You can verify this on the Illinois Department of Elections website, 3:17 p.m., April 12th, and that is blatantly political. I will not be lectured by anyone on ethics when they are violating the county ethics ordinance that applies to elected officials in this county. That's the end of my comment.
Can you turn the microphone back on? I'm sorry, I'm deaf, George. I need it to hear.
I didn't mean to do that. It must be a tick or something. Anyway, I mean, if I do something on my 15-minute break that's doing personal business, I just don't see what the sin is, and I will leave it at that. Okay, was I campaigning? Look at the ethics ordinance. I've read it very carefully. You're just like Wayne Williams. You sit there and go, oh, I read policies. You violated them, and then there was no policy. Find it. All right, can we get back to finances, which is the subject at hand? I thought there was an actual question still lingering.
Are there any board members with further questions?
I'm not answering Michelle Jetts. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, George. If you're
I'd
concluding
be
your
curious
presentation.
what Michelle's question
Michelle,
is
if you'd like
anyway,
to
even
ask a
if Mr.
question, you have
Dinos
the
won't
ability to
answer
do
it.
so.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make a few clarifying statements because there's been kind of a lot of information being thrown at everyone. First of all, in terms of the bonds that the public safety sales tax pays, we have bonds in that through 2037. So there's no paying off any bonds early. Bonds are also not really like your mortgage. You can't necessarily pay them off early. And paying them off early doesn't mean that we could save money. Even if we did, it doesn't mean it's going to change the interest rate. So paying off bonds is a very broad issue that would need extensive amount of research to see if that was even something that was legal and possible for us to do. I think we all know this, but I just want to reiterate, the last 2 years of revenue have been groundbreaking for us, and they are already slowing down and stopping. So the last 2 years are anomalies and not what we should be basing any of our planning or forecasting on, because that is not going to continue. As the person who did the budget last year, I can completely say that it is not the auditor's area. It is not what they're involved in. It's not what they should be involved in. They're involved in auditing. They are not involved in the budget and the big picture of the mission and the philosophy and the goals of how we're spending our money. Our general revenue fund is high. It's high for a lot of reasons. I think the most important one that I really, really ask you to please remember is we are probably sliding most likely into a recession, and our general fund balance is what will keep us from laying people off as long as possible. And if we start spending through our general fund balance, we will start laying off employees sooner than if we could possibly weather it out because we have such a good balance amount. It's also a big part of why we have the bond rating that we have. If we begin to lower our general fund, our bond rating could slip, which will increase all of our interest rates, which will just cost us more money then as we spend through our general fund balance at that point. We are in a good financial place right now, and it is on a tipping scale, and we can either push it over the cliff or we can balance it back and protect ourselves through the next couple of years before we go on to do major things to make sure that we aren't going to get hit by a major recession that is going to impact our employees, which again is just my personal priority, and I'm just asking you to please keep that in mind, that as we make financial decisions, what is going to be the safest choice for our employees? Please keep that at the top of your mind.
As we have no further business, this meeting is adjourned.